the main target of the cultural war is the language, because
Hmm.
once you control language, you control a lot of the culture.
Mm.
So you see a lot of terms being switched and swapped and re-engineered. So certain ideologies are accepted as normal.
I think you can take any part of history and any point in history, and you find that there's a quote unquote, like you said, culture war of some at some level. Like there's
Yeah, yeah,
always the clash of the new versus the old, and like the direction that um this is as old as human history. Like in Portugal, we have this great poet who wrote like this great Odyssey, and in there he wrote this character in who's a very famous character in Portuguese culture and literature, and he's the person who looked at the brave men who sailed across, the world in the efforts to find new worlds, quote unquote. And he's like, you're all gonna die. There's nothing for you there, and that represents the old way of thinking in that story. And this is a book from the 1500s. So um, anywhere that you look, you can always find, okay, there's the traditionalism, there's this new wave that's usually against whatever came before in the most recent and the most, you know, near past, sorry. And that's true with even in art. Like the new art is always like a comment to the art, or in reaction to the art that just came before it. It's very, when it's, what's it called, like it's disruptive, and that's part of, that's a role that art takes in society. But even ideas can be disruptive to previous ideas, and even in science, like if you have a really good idea that supersedes older ideas,
yeah.
and that's, it's based, and it's justified and it's proven, then those ideas are disruptive to the way of other old people think. It's not like they were thinking wrong, it's just like a newer iteration, or a closer approximation to the truth. Now you can be argued that you can actually take two steps forwards before you take two steps back before you take two steps forward, and like, oh, okay, so this is a phase where we are actually, this is not positive, this cannot be sustainable in the long term. Only time will tell,
Right.
right? But for me, the big scope of things is like, this is technically nothing new, just changing the content. But language has always been an issue. Language is how you separate the educated from the uneducated, like how you sit at the table and how you portray yourself. It will tell you if you grew up in a
It
barn or in
always
a castle,
dictates. Yeah, it always
right?
it also dictates how you perceive things and how you understand things.
Hmm.
And I think that's one of the big problems in society right now, is the ability to understand each other by using the same language and understanding that that words and terms and terminologies, they mean what they mean. So I guess that's my problem with that deconstruction of language, that it I think it gets in the way of people understanding each other and
Right.
having a good positive discourse where they're going to be able to find solutions. um I think there's a lot of euphemism nowadays, a lot of terms that are very very real, very very like straightforward, being like there's like a contortionism being
Hmm.
made with the words, so they can infiltrate certain ideas and make it seem like it's normal, like
Can you give an example?
uh man, that's going to be really controversial.
But like a word, like let's say a word that's been misused, because that's what you're trying to, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Well, I mean, that there's a big controversy right now, I guess, with the meaning of the word woman.
Right.
I guess there were some changes online, like certain
Like somebody edited the
major
Wikipedia.
websites, yeah, that are like online dictionaries that are very used, especially by young people, students. So certain definitions have been added to the word woman and what
Hmm.
it means, to introduce certain sort of like gender ideology to it.
Hmm.
So a woman is no longer an adult female, a human female. So woman is anybody or anything that identifies as a woman. But that's kind of weird to me because when you ask them like identify as what,
Hmm.
they also don't know how to answer that question. It's like they say, well, oh, it's a woman, but like, what is that? If you are, let's say, a transgender woman, then what are you? Are like,
Right.
and they seem to have sort of like a difficult time answering that specifically. Something that should have a proper definition, something that we should be able to define in a simple way, like what is a woman. It shouldn't be a philosophical question. I mean, it can go to the philosophical realm, and we can discuss, like, what entails to be a woman. There's many different elements that constitute a woman, but when you go to the dictionary, you should be able to look at a very simple definition and know how to say, okay, what is a woman? Let's say if an alien came to Earth and said, okay, what is that? And pointed at a woman,
Hmm.
we should be able to define that. Okay, well, that's a female adult human being, because she has certain characteristics that certain biological and certain rooted characteristics, intrinsic characteristics that make her a woman, a female. You know, so that's a controversy right now. I see that being played out a lot in social media and online.
Right.
So that's one example. And I'm not stating here I'm against or I'm for it. I'm for it. I just know that that's been controversial, and I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
But
So I think it's a good example. I would also argue that on a more functional level, the purpose of a language is to convey a concept, right? It's to convey an image
exactly.
of something. And if you think about it, language means what people want or are using it for, wanting it to mean. And what I mean by that, no pun intended, is that definitions change. No, depending on how you use words, the language evolves. The difference between a language which is alive and a language that is dead is that in a dead language, you don't have new words being added. You don't have new idioms. You don't have new expressions. There, it's stagnated. It's dead.
Hmm.
But of course, like if you have a reference, aka the dictionary,
Yeah.
you get a sort of like a referral guide. But if people start expanding the definition or using a words in different contexts, if enough people adapt that, that becomes the language. Because the dictionary is not necessarily the rule, is more of the average use
Yeah.
of how people use it. And that's why we have like words that for me they in the Portuguese language there's slang that's been added to the dictionary. It's like this is not the proper way to speak Portuguese. What are you doing? But if people that speak the Portuguese are speaking that, then it's the other way around. Like I grew up thinking that the
Yeah. If
dictionary is the
there's a
thing that you.
That's
It's
the
like
thing.
the referee that says no, this is not how you do it. This is how you do it. But it's kind of like a two-way street, where if enough people do the same mistake altogether,
Yeah.
it becomes the right
But
way.
that's the thing. I think you tapped into an important point, because what you're saying is the need to a common understanding,
Mm-hmm.
or it's a contract, a social contract. It's a
Bling.
yeah, another term.
And I gotta.
But it's something that is accepted by the great majority.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening right now, I think it's the opposite. It's not something that has been accepted by the great majority, and it's something it's being pushed. It's a certain language that's being forced um, upon the great majority that do not really agree and do not really, and that's why there's so much controversy on it. I mean, Jordan Peterson, it's
Bling.
it's it, it's one of the intellectuals that I believe is so relevant nowadays, and he's constantly attacked by the ideological mobs um, I guess especially by the gender ideologues that are trying to, make those cultural changes in order to be accepted. But I don't think that's the case. But anyway, so we can talk about that after. He was the one that opposed against Bill C-16 um, in Canada. That was a compelled speech legislation that was trying to be passed, and he spoke against it. I think the bill passed. Actually, you have to refer to people by their preferred pronouns, otherwise you can get in trouble with the law, and that's basically compelled speech. But he found a way around it. He said he will always just use the person's proper name and not the pronouns. So he found a little loop there that
Right, right, right.
you know, but
I mean,
still. And his case is basically, I'm not gonna allow the state to dictate what's coming out of my mouth
hmm
based on someone's emotion or someone's preference. That's not how the world works. I mean, if I want to be referred to as I don't know, amazing and beautiful and handsome, you have to call me by those adjectives. You don't get to pick your adjectives just the way you don't get to pick your pronouns. I think that's it's just I don't know. I think it's just silly. But
yeah,
anyways,
I've
it's very sensitive. It's a very sensitive subject. Um, of course, I would never go out of my way and make someone uncomfortable just because I don't believe the same. I don't have the same beliefs as someone who identifies as a different pronoun. If that person asked me to use their proper pronouns, I wouldn't have a problem doing that. But I think there's a deeper issue than just you know um, accepting that and using people's preferred pronouns. I think there's just like um, there's not a common understanding on what's happening right now, and I think that's not really helping the the community as they think it is. I think it's a much deeper problem than that. But I'm not really a specialist, and I'm not. I don't think I'm qualified to speak in scientific or like technical terms. So everything I'm saying here is just my personal opinion.
disclaimer alert.
And
Disclaimer alert.
well, but yeah, I mean, the last thing I want to do is hurt someone's feelings, especially because I myself, I'm an artist. I'm very high in openness. I'm very creative. Um, that's why I'm an actor, and I get along super well with the artistic community, and the artistic community is all about that. But
But this is woke wars. Feelings
exactly, it's woke
must get
wars. That's
hurt.
why we bring up those controversial subjects, and we give our own personal opinions.
Well,
Just so we can, just so we can talk about it and try to understand better the social issues that are permeating society nowadays.